friends. Welcome to Season 7, Episode 288 of School Librarians United. I am your host, Amy Herman. This podcast is dedicated to the issues and challenges school librarians face every day. As a school librarian, in my 18th year, I knew I wanted a podcast which addressed the nuts and bolts of running a successful library program. I don't claim to have the answers, but I hope that this is a platform to share resources and exchange ideas. Now is a perfect time to mention that all the ideas and opinions expressed in this podcast by myself, my interview guests, and listeners who reach out to the podcast are our own and do not reflect those of our school districts. When incorporating research, I always make sure to cite my sources. So whether you are a novice or a veteran school librarian, this podcast has something for you. I welcome you and all listeners to reach out with your feedback and episode suggestions. You can reach me either on Facebook, on X, formerly known as Twitter. My handle is at LMS_United, or the email address schoollibrariansunited@gmail.com. If you include your mailing address, I'll be sure to send you a podcast sticker. And now a word from our sponsor, Capstone. Capstone is an innovative publisher and education technology provider of children's content for school libraries, classrooms, and at-home learning. Home of the award-winning PebbleGo research database, Capstone has a passion for creating inspired learning and intellectual curiosity in children, and I'm so excited to be working with them. I'm also grateful to Capstone for their commitment to support the podcast in Season 7. They are offering listeners of School Librarians United a very special discount. Visit shop.capstonepub.com and use the code UNITED to get $20 off an order of $100 or more for both print and Capstone interactive ebooks. That's code UNITED for $20 off an order of $100 or more for both print and ebooks on shop.capstonepub.com. And now for today's episode, award-winning programs for the Elementary Media Center, and my conversation with Joe Nase. Friends, I'm so excited. Joe Nase, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored to be here. I've been a listener on the podcast probably since 2019. And now here I am as a guest. I'm so excited.
Well, and I'm pretty sure I've harassed you before about being on the show. It wasn't until we had a chance to meet in person that we really got to sort of talk about this. But Joe, you're somebody that many people will see on social media. And I think once we get to talking, they're going to realize, oh, I have seen you on social media. So absolutely. So Joe, would you give listeners an idea where in the country you work? Tell us about your current library, the grades you support, the programs you offer, and a little bit about your teaching schedule, because I know that is important, plays a factor in what you're able to do.
Well, I am an elementary library media specialist in West Georgia, grades K through 5. Although my school does serve pre-K, I do not see pre-K because the schedule does not allow for it. I see all classes K through 5 because I'm on the special schedule. So I see them once a week, and then on Fridays, we do a rotation. So we have a 4-week rotation on Fridays, and that's their bonus library day when they get to come on Friday. We call it their bonus library day. But my role has changed a lot. I've been at my school for 13 years, so I have not always been on the special schedule. In fact, when I first started, I was on a flex schedule, which was so wonderful. Circulation was so much higher than what it is now, and I'm very, very fortunate that my principal has listened to me being very vocal about the need to have a different special to take the place of library so that we could have more open checkout. And so next year, I'm going to go back to a mostly flex schedule. So exciting. With the exception of third grade. We have 5 third grades instead of 4. So they're going to need me to teach third grade every day. But I am very happy to do that so that we can go back to a mostly flex schedule. So very, very excited.
But that's a real win. That's a huge win.
Yes.
And it sounds like you were able to show your administration some data which really would compel them to say, you're absolutely right, going back to a fully flexed schedule. Can you just explain to me why you had higher circulation when you had a fully flexible schedule?
When we had a fully flexible schedule, students were able to come at the point of need. When they were ready to exchange books, they could come in and check out. They didn't have to wait till their library day in order to check out. And so we had students visiting the Media Center multiple times during the week rather than only once a week or on their bonus library day twice a week. And so, yeah, we had at least double the circulation that we had since I was placed on the specials rotation. So.
Well, and that's just, on some level, you're thinking, yeah, but if you have a class coming every single hour, you should have fantastic numbers. And yet that doesn't take into consideration the fact that we have readers who read faster than their library day is scheduled. And being scheduled is arbitrary. Our readers, our devoted readers, don't care what day library is. It's they're going to read because they love to read, and then they finish their book, but it's not time to go get a new one.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. Oh, if only every administrator could appreciate the logic, and you've won. That's spectacular. But forgive me, your administration knows that you have an award-winning program already. Am I right?
Yes. My principal was one of the first people I texted after my family. I texted my family first. Big group text, and then I texted my principal.
Yes. It stands to reason that your principal would have to trust you and your best practices because you've been recognized by your state organization. And I'm so excited we get to talk about that today. I was so fortunate not only to meet you in person this past June, but I got to attend a session. I sat in the audience while you were presenting, which is something I so rarely get to do when I have a guest on the show. You were presenting a session at Georgia Library Media Association Summer Institute this June, and I just sat there and just enjoyed being an audience member. So thank you very much for that. I also got to see you get your award. But let's go ahead. Let's start off with your session that you presented, Hacks for the Media Center. You generously included a link to your entire presentation in our show notes. Friends, the show notes are always fantastic. Make sure you visit it. But these tips and tricks are game changers, not just for educators writ large, but also those of us working in our school libraries. Would you share for us the inspiration when you decided to create this presentation in the first place?
Absolutely. Well, as you have shared, I am very active on social media. I'm part of many educator Facebook groups, especially librarian Facebook groups, very active on Instagram as well. And I've seen many tips and tricks shared on these platforms about how to run an effective media center or classroom management ideas or technology integration, all those fun things. And I've gotten a lot of great tips from those posts, but I also felt like I had some good tips to share as well and decided that compiling these tips might make a good presentation. And around that same time, I also came across Christina Holzweiss's book, Hacking School Libraries, 10 Ways to Incorporate Library Media Centers into Your Learning Community, and also her Facebook group that she started, which is now called School Libraries Rock. But the name of her book was like, oh, that's exactly what I'm talking about. That would be a perfect title for this presentation. And so I decided to call it Hacks for the Media Center. And I have linked to her book and to her Facebook page in my presentation. So if anyone wants to check those out. But I've now presented this 3 or 4 times, twice at Summer Institute, 2 different Summer Institutes, and at our local RESA. And I add to it every year. So it's constantly growing because there's so much that's being shared out there. So I'm always adding to it.
Well, and I've got to imagine, have you ever had somebody who's working towards their school library degree or certificate? Have you mentored these rising next generation of school librarians in Georgia?
Absolutely. I've had at least 3 or 4 come through and come to our media center for their practicum. But I've also had library media specialists within our district who are already in our district come and just want to spend the day just to kind of get ideas and see what's going on. And I'm always happy to share. I love being able to share, but I love getting ideas from them as well.
Well, and I got to say, as somebody who got to watch you present this in person, I really had such a fantastic behind the scenes of your space. And I got to see how this all is incorporated into your program. So friends, I strongly encourage you to spend some time it really is this sort of master class in watching a veteran school librarian say, listen, I'm going to do some hand-holding here, and some of this is going to just change the way we do things radically. And I really am grateful for that. Anytime somebody does all this work and then says, oh, actually, you can go ahead and have it and take a look. Let me ask you, Joe, when it comes to, let's give listeners just a couple ideas from this presentation, because it is extensive. Could you give us like 3 tips that you think listeners would help them get a sense of what are the kinds of things that you are doing to radically improve the way your program is delivered to your students?
I don't know if all of my ideas are that radical, but here are some things that I share. I talk about tools to make life easier in the media center, like having a Scotty peeler, which is like a really sharp label remover. It's very effective. And it makes processing books so much easier. I talk about keyboard putty cleaner to clean out all the crud in between the keys. It kind of looks like slime, but it's not. Using Velcro dots, not only to mark places where students can sit and line up, but also using them to label your different areas in the media center to guide students to different books. Using lotion to protect your hands, not only from dryness, but also from warts, which I learned early on in my career that you can get warts from library books. I had to have 7 removed from my fingers. I will never forget that year. It was a very memorable year. They don't teach you that in library school.
Back to season 1, I did an episode, or no, it was season 2. Occupational hazards, who knew our jobs could be so dangerous. And I think the record for me was 3 cases of pink eye in 1 year. Because, I'm dating myself, back in the days when our computer labs had a mice, and you had a right click and a left click, and I was teaching keyboarding and basic computer skills to kindergartners who all, of course, had their fingers in their hands and their eyes and their nose and their, yes.
Oh my goodness.
And then I'm doing hand over hand. I contracted pink eye 3 times once in a year.
I'm sorry, I don't have a hack for that.
No, but I totally get it. Yes, go ahead. I interrupted.
So I just share some tools to make life a little bit easier. I also share how I have made Dewey work for me, especially in the nonfiction section. Changing call numbers to the lowest decimal possible, changing the letters instead of the author's last name to be like the first 3 letters of the fairy tale or the planet or the mammal or the sport, so that all of those books can be together and shelved easily, can be found easily by the students. In the fiction section, instead of the author's last name, changing it to the series name, so all of the series books can be together, especially if they have multiple authors.
Well, and I thought a really good example would be, would you tell us what the call number would be for cat books and for dog books?
636.7 DOG, 636.8 CAT.
Exactly. I was like, that was mind-blowing. And understand, friends, 14 years of doing it the other way. And I was like, that is so smart. That is so smart. And especially, friends, for those of us who use library assistants at the elementary level, CAT and DOG, all of a sudden they figure the numbers out eventually. But boy, does that streamline. It absolutely makes everything come together so much better.
Yes, shelving is so much faster now.
I was like sitting there going, I need to just do my job over again. I can do better this time. So how about, and you also mentioned some other handy tips and tricks, especially when it came to book fairs, because for so many of us, that's something we have to do every year.
Yes. And I list, I believe, 10 different tricks for running a successful book fair. I've got a link to my blog post for that. Also tips for a successful inventory. I link to the blog post about that. And then also links to grant opportunities and links to ways to grow your PLN. And Amy, you might actually be on that page too.
Awesome. Well, but understand that, when you realize how much we lean on the people we come into, I say direct contact. We cross paths all the time on social media. And all the time we're just like, hey, I just did this in my library. And you know what? I'm going to repost that. And on Twitter, I know you're on Instagram. And because every time we share, like, your star in Georgia in no way diminishes because some random librarian in Michigan has decided to take one of your fantastic ideas and implement it in their space. You are simply responsible for other librarians raising the profile of what they do and hopefully securing their position in and their role in their job. You know, and I love how let's just segue for a minute because you have a blog, you have a website, you share all over the place. If listeners would like to ever pick the brain of a veteran librarian, school librarian, your blog and website seem to be like a repository of all the perfected teaching tools, a compilation of your web resources, things that you could possibly want, all in, sort of coalesced into one place. Because when I bookmark things, this is the easiest thing to do. Let's bookmark a blog. Let's bookmark a website. So, could you tell us a little bit about what you have published out there for years now? This is nothing new. And by the way, links in the show notes, friends.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, both are the result of documenting and curating what I've learned through my experience as an educator and as a school library media specialist. My blog is called The Book Bug, and it started as a way to chronicle my journey as a school library media specialist, but it really developed into a way to share and connect with others. I actually met one of my best friends because she commented on a blog post, and then we started emailing back and forth. And then we met in person at a conference, and now we text weekly. In fact, I texted her 3 or 4 times already today. And it's all because of that blog that I started just as a journal for myself. And then I started connecting with all kinds of other people. So it's just been really amazing. My website is called A Teacher's Bag of Tricks. And I started it around the same time as a way to share the web resources that I've found with my faculty rather than clogging up their email every day with hey, this is a cool website, check it out. I just made it as a one-stop shop for them to look at, to be able to find resources that they might use in their classroom. And then I decided, well, if the teachers at my school find it helpful, other educators might find it helpful as well. And so I actually started a Facebook page for it and shared out the link to the website. And then I started sharing out resources on that Facebook page, and it just started to grow. And now I think I have 5,000 or 6,000 followers on that Facebook page. And but I will have to say that life has gotten busy, so I don't post as much as I used to on my Facebook pages, on my blog or my website. But I am very active on Instagram. I share out daily. That's my goal, is to share out every day during the school year. One thing that we're doing in our media center as a way to advocate for the importance of school libraries. And it's sort of my microblog. So yeah, I am much more active on Instagram now than I am on other platforms, but I do still share out.
Well, I think that the wonderful thing is, again, you're sharing. And that is one of those ways that we can all just sort of get suggestions from you and just that extra sort of that nudge, and especially because it comes with the visuals and all the resources that hopefully people can say, yeah, this is kind of like the jump start that I need. This June, and I was there in the audience, it was fantastic, you received a wonderful distinction, and that is Librarian of the Year for the entire state of Georgia. I know listeners would love to know what caught the eye of the award committee, and we're going to talk about a whole bunch of things that you do which really help you reach and support your entire school community. I'm so grateful that you're sharing today. So I know people start taking notes at this point in the show. They start listening and start writing things down. But, thank you so much. I'm grateful that you are about to share many of the things that you do all the time that really make a big impact on the students and the staff that you support. So let's go ahead. First of all, it was wonderful. It was wonderful to see you. There was so much joy when you received this award. I was so excited for you, and we had just met in person. So let's get started. You picked a bunch of things, and I can't wait to hear about them.
Yes. Well, I really don't know how I won. I'm still in shock and awe because there were so many wonderful school library media specialists that were nominated by their regions this year. And as I stated at the awards gala, I felt like such an imposter after hearing all the wonderful things that were happening in their libraries. And I'm truly so honored to have been named Georgia Library Media Specialist of the Year. And thinking about what might have set me apart, I just started thinking about my online presence. As we've talked about, I am very, very active online, not only sharing things out, but being an advocate for school libraries and public libraries to the point where sometimes it has gotten me in trouble. I have been called into the office before by my administration and have been told that I was coming across as making my job seem more important than other people's. And of course, I don't feel that way at all. I mean, I would never want anyone to feel that way. We are all in this together. It takes a village to educate our students. And I don't want anyone to ever feel like someone else feels their job is more important. So I have learned to tone it down in certain environments and to change the way that I advocate in certain areas. But I am still extremely vocal online to support not only school libraries, but public libraries, because I know that libraries are not always considered essential or even important. And now they're coming under attack. So I've been very outspoken, and I will continue to be outspoken online. But having said that, I would love to get into some of the programs that I mentioned on my application for Library Media Specialist of the Year. One of the things that our school does is something called WOW Days. But because it takes me a whole week to see everyone, I do a WOW week instead of a WOW day. But a WOW day or a WOW week is when our school picks a theme and we decorate our spaces in that theme. And every single lesson that we do for that day or that week, in my case, revolves around that theme. And our first one is usually kicks off around when college football season starts, because we do a sports theme. So that's usually our first one. And let me say this, that our WOW days are never announced, so the kids don't know about it. So when they walk in, the whole goal is for them to go, wow, because they did not know about it. And it's also a way for us to encourage students to come to school, because they never know when a WOW day may happen, because they're always unannounced. We do these several times throughout the year. So our first one is usually a sports theme. I've done a spring theme before. We have talked about insects and animals, life cycles, that kind of thing. One year we did different books, and the specials team chose Pete the Cat, and we each dressed up like a different Pete the Cat character. And in the media center for that week, we did musical book chairs, where you put books in a circle on chairs and we play music. And when the music stops, they sit and they read the books. But we did a spin on that because my book was Pete the Cat Rocks. And so we had the lights off with a disco ball, and they got to flashlight read the books during musical books. So we did that with our Pete the Cat theme. I've also done a monster week around October, and did friendly monster kind of lessons. I did Osmo Monster with the littles. We have whiteboard tables, which our PTO generously purchased for us about 7 years ago. And so they're able to write on the tables with dry erase markers. So we use the Osmo Monster app so they can be illustrators, and they illustrate what Mo the Monster on the app asks them to illustrate. We have a lot of English language learner students at our schools, and the Osmo app has a Spanish version on it. So I can turn it to Spanish, and their little eyes light up so much, and they are so excited to hear their native language and be able to participate in the lesson and not have to worry about understanding what the app is asking them to do. It's just so much fun to see their little eyes light up when you turn that Spanish version on.
Aww.
So yeah,
I'm curious, is there like a WOW committee? So like, say, the teachers who get together, you get together and say, hey, I think this would be a great theme for a WOW day, or, I'm just curious, like somebody's going to say, yeah, but this is a lot of planning. Who on the back end has the forethought to do this?
We actually did a professional development of a book one year, and that's where the idea came from. Generally, it is the team lead when they're doing a grade level meeting that will come up with the ideas for the theme. Our guidance counselor is really big in leading kind of the theme, especially for our sports theme in the fall. And then we have one big Google Doc where everyone writes down what specifically they want to do for the theme and then what items they need purchased. And then we use school funds, like from our ice cream sales at lunch, to purchase the items that we need to decorate. So we're not having to purchase these items ourselves, which is really nice because I know a lot of us would go into our own pockets. So,
well, and that we're really trying to just that can't be the default, right? That and I'm not going to tell anybody how to do their job, but reaching into your own wallet to do everything that you want to do in your library is a slippery slope, and it really can become, and I don't want to get on a tangent, but if your administrator sees you doing all of these things, but they aren't providing you the funds to do it, it's harder then to go and say, I need money. Because, I had some interesting conversations. People came into me and said, hey, I need all of this done on cardstock. And I'm like, well, no can do. I don't have cardstock. What do you mean you don't have cardstock? I'm like, I don't have a budget for paper. So if you want something done, you got to go figure out how this is going to happen. But if I just simply said, you know what, I'm just going to go to the office supply, pick up, a couple reams of cardstock, all of a sudden, nobody feels that I need anything because it's okay. Amy will buy it. It's fine.
Yep. Nobody understands that the funding isn't there if you fund it yourself. Yep. Absolutely.
Exactly. No. That's just me just throwing that in there. Like if there apparently is no need, then why? You clearly don't need a budget. Oh my goodness. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to take that turn, but I just have to throw that in there because I think sometimes it's so like you hear about all these amazing programs, but if we don't begin to talk about how they're funded, the presumption is that you're somehow coming up with this magic money. All right, cool. So WOW Weeks. And do you already know this next year's WOW Weeks, or these will roll out as the school year happens?
Yeah, they'll roll out. I'm sure that we're going to do one in the fall, probably the sports theme again. We don't know what day yet, and I don't know about the rest of the year. A lot of times teachers will go rogue and do their own WOW days just randomly because it's so much fun. So, yeah.
I love that. I love it. But you also have to allow for that teacher initiative, and you don't want to quash that enthusiasm.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so let's hear about your next idea.
Speaking of not having funding, I wrote a grant for a makerspace because I felt like that was something that would enhance our media program. So one year I wrote a grant and it was provided through our local energy company, EMC. It's called the Bright Ideas Grant. And I was able to purchase the Osmo kits that we use with the littles. I purchased some Spheros and Ozobots. I also used Book Fair Scholastic Dollars to purchase Dot and Dash robots, Q-bots. I wrote Donors Choose grants and got some more robots. They're called Kamigamis, like origami, because you have to put them together like origami. Unfortunately, the app is no longer supported, so they work for now, but I don't know how much longer they're going to work. But I did write a grant for those and also Makeys. So we have a lot of fun makerspace STEM type items in our media center because of those grants. I also wrote a grant for sharing libraries. That's what I call them. They're like satellite libraries, little free libraries, but they're for our school. We have 6 different sharing libraries around our school. One is in front of the school so that our whole community can participate. We have one on the patio of the playground so students can have access to books during recess if they don't feel like playing. There's one in the lobby of the gym. So when students come in off of the bus in the mornings or while they're waiting to leave to get on the bus in the afternoons, they have access to books. There's one in the entryway as you go into the cafeteria. So if students want to read during lunch, they can. And then we have two that are in the hallways. And these are they're actually made them out of crates, milk crates that are zip tied together and on a dolly. And the ones that are in the gym and in the cafeteria were purchased with Scholastic Dollars, and they are the ones that you can buy in the Scholastic Dollars catalog that look like a little house. And the ones that are outside are plastic. I think I got them from Walmart, and they were like on sale. So I was able to make that grant money go a little bit further because of that. And I needed some that were going to last for outside. But the way the sharing libraries work are our kids get to donate gently used books to put in them. They bring them to me, and I put a sharing library sticker on them so we know that they're sharing library books, and they can be returned to any of our sharing libraries. I make a big deal about it when they donate their books and thank them on the morning announcements, and then I also give them a little thank you note. And then on our sharing libraries, there's a sign that says, need a book? Take a book. Have a book? Leave a book, so that they know that it is a way that everyone can share their love of reading. Those would not have come about had it not been for those grant opportunities that were out there.
Well, and I love that you have removed the barrier to access by absolutely permeating your entire campus with available books to read. I know that I've seen this sometimes when I go into the main office when I used to teach elementary, that I'd go into the main office and there was always a basket of books for students who are waiting. And those could be whether they're waiting to see, one of the administrators, or they're waiting to get picked up, or they, were putting an ice pack on their head because they bunked themselves at recess. But there was always a basket of books, and they weren't library books. They didn't belong in the classroom. They were just the ones that lived there because you want that invitation, you want that access. And there is no barrier to just reaching down and starting to read. Not unlike you'd have like books at on a bookshelf at the doctor's office or the dentist's office. You're like, hey, this is just your invitation to read. I love that.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's so fantastic. I love it. So let me ask you, you said you mentioned this on your announcements. And you have a fairly steady stream of students. Do you talk this up in your programming when you talk to your students, and do you provide reminders or notes in your PTO or messages home to the families if they want to sort of upcycle the books that they're no longer reading?
Absolutely. If right now we have a good amount still available, our sharing libraries are well stocked, and then I also have a lot in the back that I can put out. But when we start to get low, I will put out on our school Facebook page and on Class Dojo and in our monthly newsletter that we need it. And also when we have our media lessons and we talk about how to become a better reader, we talk about having access to books and being able to reach that goal of 20 minutes a day by having books accessible to us. Where can we find books? You can find them in your home. You can find them in the school library. You can find them in your classroom library. But we also have our sharing libraries. So that's when I kind of plug our sharing libraries. And they get really excited about bringing those bags of books. And I make a big deal when they bring me a Walmart bag full of books. I'm like, thank you so much. This is so nice of you. You are sharing your love of reading with other boys and girls. And they are going to get to learn to love reading too, because you were sharing these books that you loved with them.
I love that. So, all right, let's talk about book walks.
Okay. Yes. This was something new that we tried this year, and it was very well received. I got so much feedback every time we did a book walk this year, emails from teachers and comments in the hallway. So I feel like it's something that I'm going to continue. But we did 5 book walks this year. We started in August with School is More Than a Building by Kelly Donner. I talked to my principal like the week of pre-planning, maybe the week before, and I said, I have this idea. I think this would be a great way to do like an orientation for our students to have this book walk with this book. and we can put the pages that go with the different areas next to those areas. Like if the page mentions having a nutritious lunch, we could put that page by the cafeteria. And so it introduces the students to where these areas are in our school, especially to the littles who might be new or new students in upper grades. And then that book actually had activities to go with each page, so it makes it interactive. So I brought that to her. She loved the idea. So she went ahead and used school funds, purchased yard signs for me, purchased the book, and she said, go for it. And then I had the materials within a few days. I cut the pages apart, taped them together, laminated them, cut them out. I'd adhered them to the yard signs with Velcro dots so that I could reuse the signs and reuse the pages if we want to do it again this year as an orientation activity. So that was our first book walk. And I sent out a Google Doc to the teachers so that they would know where I put each sign. They had to start and end at the same spot, but the rest of the pages they could do in any order. It really didn't matter, so that they could show the students around the building. And they just loved it. They really had a good time. So I was like, okay, well, let's try it again. So we did one in September. Our guidance counselor always does something in September for Grandparents' Day, but we don't necessarily call it Grandparents' Day. We call it Goodies with Grands. So it can be anybody grand in your life. You could bring them to this event. And so the book that I used for that was How to Read to a Grandma or Grandpa. And that was the best book that I could find at the time. It's by Jean Reagan. But they would read the story together and go around different areas of the school, kind of like what we did with our first story. And there were different activities for them to do that our guidance counselor came up with. She did not ask me to do that. She came up with the activities for each page. And for the media center, it was tell a joke. And if they didn't know a joke, they could come into the media center and look at one of our joke books and share a joke. They were very happy by that time because a lot of the pages were outside to come inside and get cooled off. And we had a lot of visitors in the media center that day and a lot of grandparents that did come. Mostly were grandparents, but we had some aunts and uncles and some neighbors and friends as well. And they all said that they really enjoyed it, that it was a fun way to learn about the school, because most of the times when you have like an open house, they only go to their own classroom. They don't get to see necessarily other areas of the school. So it was a neat way to introduce a bigger part of our school community to other areas of our school. So they really loved that. In October, we did the Read for the Record book. I put it outside on the playground. With Lots of Love by Jenny Torres Sanchez was the book. And so I put it out on the playground. And then I asked teachers to email me if they participated and how many students participated, so I could then email that number to Read for the Record so they could record that number. And then we did one in December that was inside, Little Red Sleigh by Erin, and I'm going to butcher her name. I apologize, Erin. Windelsberger, I think is how you say her last name. And I came up with the activities for that, and it was inside. They had a lot of fun. And then our last one was in April. For School Library Month, I did Miss Brooks Loves Books and I Don't by Barbara Botner. It's one of my favorite books to read during School Library Month. And again, I put this one outside. And I had even pre-K, the pre-K students participated because it wasn't something in our library. It was something anybody could participate in. And I had one of the pre-K teachers say, thank you so much for doing this. My kids really enjoyed it. It was so much fun for them.
I love that you were able to rally I'm sure you now expected to do this every year. But it sounds like you did it DIY. You got the yard signs. Forgive me, I'm not sure. You'd have to buy, because pages are on two sides, you would have to have like two copies of the book so that when you made those pages accessible on one side, you would have to have a second copy to provide the backside of that page somewhere, Okay, so... But then you use your little Velcro dots and you can just reuse the lawn signs. I love that.
I used the yard signs for all 5 book walks when they're still holding up great. So
Oh, I love that. Well, and it wouldn't surprise me the least if your staff members had their own ideas of books that they think would be wonderful additions to this and create, a whole library of book walks that you can rotate and make available. That's wonderful. And I think the fun thing is that this also gets the kids out of their classrooms. And at least in my experience, that was always a treat. That when the students, like when you get the kids and the teachers, it just is a part of you, it just interrupts your day enough that it gives students and teachers something to sort of schedule around. And so it sounds like you probably had the different grade levels doing this at different times so that you didn't get a lot of congestion, but it was an activity and it involved movement and reading. All right. So how about your red carpet readers?
Okay. We celebrate our readers in different ways. We have had in the past AR, and it went away, and then it came back. Yeah. But now that it is back, it is not as heavily emphasized like it was in the past. We still want a way to recognize our readers. So what we have done with the Red Carpet Reader program, it used to be students would have to earn a certain number of points. Well, we changed it to words. If they made 1 million words, they would make it to the Red Carpet Reader celebration. It was actually called the Million Word Club at that point. And our school used school funds to rent out a limo. They would walk the red carpet. They get to go in a limo, go out to eat. But our school system found out about it, and they said, our insurance won't cover that, so you can't do that anymore. So we had to revamp the program a little bit. So now it is, we do it at school, or we had done it at school. Now that I'm on the special schedule, that program has had to change a little bit. It's gone back to classroom recognition, but they still would walk the red carpet. But instead of going off campus for lunch, they would eat lunch in the media center, and we do some games. And I got ceiling tiles and painted them red and put a star on them like the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and they got to put their handprint on the ceiling tile and sign their name. So those ceiling tiles are forever in our media center to show that they are red carpet readers. So it's something that they can come back when they are seniors in high school. When they come to do their senior walk, they can see their name on that tile up on the ceiling in the media center.
I have seen this before, where the tiles are brought down. I've seen people who have decorated each tile like the cover of a book. I've seen that before, but this is wonderful. They can go back and visit.
Yeah, it leaves their mark. Yeah. Oh, we also purchased yard signs for them that says a red carpet reader lives here, so they could put that in their front yard.
This is that validation and this celebration. You know, we think nothing of this when it comes to putting yard signs for graduates. Or kids when they get accepted into university. I know there's always a yard sign out there maybe, but for this to celebrate reading is really so important. How about Researcher of the Month? That's a new one for me. I want to hear about you celebrate the Researcher of the Month. How is that done?
We have several different databases, and I teach how to use those databases, but I didn't know if the students were using them outside of my lessons. And I wanted to encourage them to use the databases. And so I would have a research question of the month. And this is for 2nd through 5th grade, because they would have to be able to read enough on their own to be able to independently look up the answer using our databases. I can't remember the name of the database now, but now we use Facts for Me. That's one of the main ones. But I also teach Galileo. There's a question each month, and they can submit through a Google form. And if we have more than one correct answer, then I select from all of the correct answer a winner from each grade level. They get their picture taken and put on a bulletin board, and it's also announced at the beginning of the month for the previous month on morning announcements. So yeah, we make a big deal about it, that they have used their information literacy skills to find the answer. And I also tell them that they have to cite their source. So they have to not only in their answer give me the answer, but they have to give me the source of where they found their answer. And I tell them Google is not a source. If you put google.com, even if you have the correct answer, your answer will not be counted because Google is not a source.
The first thing I thought about there were how so many of us have to collect that user data that justifies spending money on our databases. I know that we spend a great deal of money on databases because we're an IB school. But if we don't have the user data to substantiate, to justify that expense, it really does call into question if we're being judicious with that funding. And this is one way to really encourage students to use that database, not just to associate it with an assignment, but just for the love of the searching and learning and investigating, and encouraging to do so in a way that those skills then translate when they do have to do it for school assignments.
It's just to get them using those databases and learning to use those skills that hopefully I have taught them well to be able to use that information that they've learned.
And it sounds like it keeps you on your toes too, because I presumably you can't reuse your questions.
No. I do try to make a theme, though, for each month so that the question kind of goes along each year with a theme, so I don't have to come up with a different theme every year.
Got it. Okay. So guest authors, it sounds like you've been able to make this happen both in person and virtual guest authors.
Absolutely. I have never paid for a guest author, not once. So I always look for free guest authors. So these are usually authors that the kids and I have never heard of. So I do try to do a little bit of investigating first to make sure it would be a good fit. Looking at their books, if I can find their books at the public library, if we don't have them in our collection already, so that I can get an idea of what kind of books that they write. Most of the time they are free or free with the exception of, can I sell my books after my presentation, or can students pre-order the books that I'm going to be talking about in exchange for their visit. So it's just a way that I've been able to provide that opportunity for our students to expand their view of what a book is. Like, they talk about how their books are made, how they've gotten published, just that whole process. We recently had, in December, we had J. Scott Savage. It was his second visit to our school, and he was so much fun. And he talked about just how he got his ideas, and he talked about new books that were coming up. We've also had Dave and Pat Sargent. It was an elderly couple who wrote books about their horses, and I didn't know it at the time, but it was their very last school visit ever. And had I known, I would have done like a big blowout celebration for them, but he didn't say anything until the presentation that it was his last school visit ever. And I was like, oh, but yeah, they were a really sweet couple. And then their son, David M. Sargent Jr., came, and he brought his dog, and it was so cute. He had his dog as part of the presentation, and the kids really loved that. But we've also had virtual visits, like during Read Across America. Jeff Rodkey, Melissa Gwynn, I had not heard of her before. I don't think she writes anymore, but at the time she wrote some really cute picture books, and she Skyped with a second grade class. And then during her Skype visit, she illustrated some penguins, and she sent that picture to me after the visit, and I was able to give it to the class that she Skyped with, and that teacher hung it up on the door, and she may still have it on her door in her classroom. Yeah.
Aw, that's so cute. Well, I'll be honest. I made the rookie mistake once of saying, hey, we should get an author to come to our school. And of course, the kids are like, I said, well, who would you want? And I'm so stupid. They're like, Dave Pilkey. And I'm like, oh, friend. They're like, well, what about Jeff Kinney? I was like, yeah, no. And they're like, Rick Riordan. And I was like, oh, geez. I was like, I mean, they must have thought I was a magician. And it's hard because if the only authors you're willing to bring are ones that every single student has heard of, you're setting the bar way too high. And this is something which very few schools can afford. It's oftentimes schools which have received an amazing grant or a gift, or they have won some sort of recognition, and this is part of the prize is that you're going to get this, guest author. And I think we have to be reasonable with our own expectations of what we're able to do, given that bringing authors in. I know we have an author coming in to speak at our state conference, and they will that week, because they're going to be in the state of Michigan, they will do their school visits on discount. And so sometimes you can find ways to get a discount for your guest authors. I know we've had some guests talk about teaming up with a bookstore that has brought in a guest author and then have the guest author come to the school, which is another way to sort of offset those expenses. Let's talk a little bit. You're talking about your media lessons and integrating technology. Can you give an idea of something that you really feel is a home run with your students and your teachers?
Well, our district is now 1-to-1 K through 12 Chromebooks. So even our littles have Chromebooks and they need to know how to use their Chromebooks, right? So at least for 2nd through 5th grade, I have them bring their Chromebooks every week when they come to the media center. If we don't use them, that's fine. They can just tuck them under their seats. It's not a big deal. But they do have them if we need to use them for our lesson. So when I do have lessons that I want to use Chromebooks with, I usually deliver it through Nearpod because it's an easy way to put the link in Google Classroom, which I have a Google Classroom for 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. They know they just get on to the Google Classroom and click on the link. And Nearpod is so interactive. I can add polls and quizzes and games through Nearpod, links for them to go visit, videos. So it makes the lesson so much more interactive. And ever since I started using Nearpod, it really changed the way that I taught. Just being able to have the kids be more a part of the lesson rather than just sit and get, here's Mrs. Nase up here talking in front of the board. They are actually able to participate in the lesson and see their answers up on the board, see their friends' answers up on the board. They really like the one where they draw their answer. They like to be able to see their picture up on the board, and I can hide it where I'm the only one that can see it. And the ones that are not appropriate, I can delete real quick. And I'm like, if you don't see your picture up there, then you might want to change your answer.
Let me ask you, do you have a building subscription to Nearpod? Because my understanding is there is a subscription associated with Nearpod.
Yes. Our district actually has purchased Nearpod. That was just recently. But prior to that, I would use like book fair funds to be able to have a subscription for Nearpod. But yeah, our district now has a subscription to Nearpod and Canva. So yeah, we've started using Canva a little bit too.
I imagine once the students enjoy Nearpod in the media center, now they're going to go back to class, and now their teachers are going to be like, what are you doing that they're so excited about? Because that's what happens, right? They go back and the teachers are like, wait, what are you using? Because we want to use that in our classroom too. I'm assuming that's what happened, and now all the teachers want to use it.
Yes. Well, also because so many of our teachers attend GATC, which is our state tech conference. They hear about all these fun things, and then they come back and they talk to their school administrators, and then the administrators bring it to the district. And when the district is hearing the same thing over and over again, then they start investigating and want to put the money into providing the subscription for all the schools, which is really nice.
Well, and it's engaging your students on each student gets to feel connected with what you are doing. And there is this a way to sort of see your students engage from the instructor's perspective too. I know that anytime administrators feel like their dollars are being spent well and exciting this love of learning in their students, that, how can you argue with that? So it sounds like they've made a worthwhile investment in the building by getting the subscription. Let's talk lastly about information literacy lessons that support the classroom scope and sequence.
Okay. Because I'm on the special schedule, I am not able to collaborate as fully as I would like. Unfortunately, that's one of the downfalls. But all of our grade levels do have a scope and sequence that they follow from the county, and they share that with me. And so I kind of know where they are in the classroom if I don't have time to touch base with them through an email or through a quick conversation in the hallway. And so I try to align my lessons to what they're doing in the classroom and be able to put information literacy into that as well. So one of the things that I love to do, one of my favorite lessons every year, is we have, for some reason, 2 taxidermied owls in our media center. I don't know why someone thought that was the place to put taxidermied owls. I don't know. One of them was there before I got there, before I inherited the media center, and I was told that poor owl flew into the side of a barn and died naturally, and someone found it. And of course, because owls are a protected species, you have to get special permission to have it taxidermied and to have the owl. So they had all of that, and I don't know why they wanted to get rid of it, but I guess they thought, here is a great learning opportunity for students, and so they donated it to our school. And when I took over, I was not allowed to get rid of it.
Every librarian listening right now has something in their library they were told they could not get rid of. And we're just like, okay, like this is the curse of communal space. And we become like this time capsule of things that people know we need to have, but they don't want them in their classroom. And so we're sort of like the junk drawer of the whole school, and these random things. I know when I walked in, the first thing people was like, I didn't even get a, hey, hello, nice to meet you. Somebody pointed and said, you can't get rid of that. It belongs to the Learning Commons. That stays here. And I'm like, it's nice to meet you. My name's Amy. I'm your librarian. I was like, oh my gosh, you're being like instructed on what you have to do. And so you've acquired 2 taxidermied owls.
Yes. My second or third year, the principal came in and was like, look, I have another owl for you.
Great. Awesome.
I said, all right, I guess it will go in this other corner adjacent to this owl.
Okay. So
So I wanted to make use of it. I thought, these owls creep the kids out. I don't want it to creep them out. So let's make it a teachable moment. Let's learn about owls. So during the spring, when they start learning about animals and insects and talking about life cycles, I do a research with the littles about owls. We learn about the life cycle of an owl. So we look at 2 different nonfiction books about owls. And then I wheel in the cart with the owl inside of a plexiglass container, but it is covered with fabric. And then I pull the fabric off, and they're like, oh. And they're all thinking that it's real. I said, well, yes, it is a real owl, but it is not alive anymore. And I go through the explanation of, what happened to it, and that it is taxidermied, and so it doesn't have its parts inside anymore because we don't want it to stink and all of that good stuff. And then I'm able to take the plexiglass off of it, and they get to come up and touch the feathers, not the beak or any other part, but I let them use the back of their hand, not the palm, but the back of their hand, and gently touch the owl 3 times because we don't have all day. So they get to pet it 1, 2, 3, and then go sit down. They don't have to if they don't want to, but most of them do want to. And they are surprised at how soft the feathers are. And they remember that lesson. When they get up to 5th grade and I ask them, some of their favorite things, some of their favorite memories, inevitably, 3 or 4 of them will always say, I remember the owl lesson that we did in kindergarten or 1st grade. So they always remember that. But yeah, so making the most of those taxidermy.
Well, and, forgive me, I don't know, there might be other librarians. I know in my building, our 4th graders dissected owl pellets. And that's a whole, that gross factor right there. Everyone gets really excited about trying to reconstruct what it was the owls consumed when they dissected their owl pellets.
Yes, so our 5th graders do that every year. Yeah.
Making memories. Yes,
Making
absolutely.
Memories.
Right. And you know what? I think what's most important, though, is that you're giving students a reason to be excited about coming to the library. You're giving them an opportunity to share what they've learned with their families. And this is so important because it reminds our families and our teachers and our administrators why what we do is so important. Oh my gosh. Joe Nase, you are wonderful. And I'll tell you what, half a dozen people there are going, oh my gosh. So Joe Nase, so many people have probably crossed paths and not realized it. Would you tell us the best way to find you and all that you share on social media? Because adding you to my PLN, it happened very subtly. And I was like, oh, wait, we've been doing this for years. So please let us know where we can find you on social media.
Like I said, I am mostly active on Instagram, and my handle is @botbookbug. @bot stands for A Teacher's Bag of Tricks. And it's all lowercase, @botbookbug. On Facebook, it is the Bookbug blog for my blog, and then I also have a page for my website, A Teacher's Bag of Tricks website. I am on X, but not as much, and my handle on that is @botbookbug. Capital ATBOT, capital B for book, and capital B for bug.
Fantastic. I know you are looking forward to this next year for a very special reason. You've got a big changes to your schedule, and this is going to be like a return to an amazing way that you used to teach. I know you've got to be excited.
I'm excited, but I also feel pressure because I feel like here I have been advocating for this for so many years, so now I have to prove that, yes, it does work. I hope that it will also lead to more collaboration, though. That's a goal I've always had, is to be more collaborative with our teachers, and this is going to free me up to be able to do that. So, yeah, I'm really excited about all the opportunities that this year will hopefully bring.
Well, as Georgia's School Librarian of the Year, I think that your building's in good hands. I'm not worried about them one bit. Joe Nase, I'm so grateful. I hope you enjoy the rest of your summer and have a fantastic school year.
Thank you so much, Amy. I hope you have a great year, too.
Friends, if you found this episode helpful, please share it out with your team, your PLN, and on social media. Be sure to follow on your favorite podcatcher so you'll never miss an episode. And if you really like listening today, consider leaving a review wherever you listen to podcasts. Reviews help others find us. Don't forget to use the code UNITED to take advantage of Capstone's generous $20 discount off an order of $100 or more. See the link in today's show notes. The topic of our next episode will be Prepared Libraries, Empowered Teams, and my conversation with authors Becky Calzada, Val Edwards, and Megan Heindel. I hope you will tune in.